Hello, everyone. My name's John Chase, and this is a global SciComm meetup, maybe the sixth one, I believe. And this is a special about Malta and looking at science communication and small islands with a Maltese perspective to try and gather some information, some knowledge about what it's like to really communicate science from an island perspective, shut off from mainlands. You have to maybe get resources in different ways. And to be honest, I don't know the ins and outs. And so I thought this session could be really interesting for people who haven't really considered this before. We're going to be hearing from Ed Duca, who's done so much science communication work in Malta. It's ridiculous. I was amazed at how much he's getting done there. And so I've been really interested to hear about him. And he's got so much to share. So I hope you guys get as much as I always get from speaking to him. So I'll pass it straight over to you, Edward.
Thanks for the kind words, John. Um, from small island to big island, I suppose. Um, okay, so thank you all for coming. It's really lovely to see you all. John, am I showing the big screen, the full screen? Yes, all right, brilliant. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so I'm a professor in science communication at the University of Malta. I'm also a festival coordinator for science in the city. I'm involved in a lot of EU projects, and maybe that's one thing that helps me do a lot more. Um, Even though coming from a small island. I'm also part of UC, the European Science Engagement Association, and I think that network really helps. You're welcome to ask me questions at any time. John, there are a few people in the waiting room for your. You're welcome to ask me questions at any time to stop me. John will stop me because I will overrun in our speaking. I've prepared too much, just ask me questions or post them on the chat whenever you want. Yeah, this is I'm showing you a lot of it is my work, so I or work of people I work with. Um, so I really liked how John framed this session. How do the experiences of small countries varies, and how do you balance local impact with international relevance? How do you remain internationally relevant on a small island? And first, a bit about Malta. It is tiny, very tiny. That's a map of the world, then a map of Europe, and then you still need to zoom in way more to reach Malta. Um, it's basically 27 kilometers long, the island of Malta, about 17 wide, population of 580, 600,000, something like that. Some more stats about Malta. Sorry, first some nice pictures of Malta. Two of these are mine. One is from a tourist website. You can guess which are. John didn't manage to guess. Because we went through this just before, and I hope you like the pictures. So yeah, Malta has fireworks. It has, tradition, village feasts. It's a highly Catholic country. Um, Now it's become a very diverse country as well. Um, 30% of people come from other countries. I think there are over 90 different nationalities in Malta now. This obviously supposed to benefit and causes tension. Um, I like it. For example, it makes socializing a lot more interesting. And as you saw, we've both got old, beautiful culture and walls which are 400 years old, or towns and cities built 1,000 years ago. The oldest freestanding stone structures in the world from about 3,000 to 4,000 BC, and there were recent archaeological findings that put human migrations coming to Malta at about 6,000 BC. So, really, Malta is like history on history on history. And that's a lot of it is related to the map I showed you, where it is in the Mediterranean. It's in the center of the Mediterranean. It's been independent since 1964. Its GDP per capita has really increased and amazes me, to be honest. That doesn't mean we're all earning that amount of money, unfortunately. The median wage in Malta is about 18,000. So what that means is that you've got a group in the population earning large sums of money and another group earning above the minimum wage, a bit more than the minimum wage. And that's where the majority of the people lie, which can make life difficult because rents have increased and so on. Development has obviously skyrocketed as well. This has caused a lot of tension with land use and so on. And these are things that aren't unique to Malta. You find them in other places around the world. Housing crises, affordability of housing, and so on. So our GDP rate, the economy is going well, but we only invest 0.6% of that in our research and development. And that's been consistent since I've been back in Malta since 2010. And we do well with EU funding. So small island issues. On the right, we did a study about how internally at the University of Malta, and what was happening at the University of Malta reflects the whole country. So that issue of fragmentation, despite it being a small country, people not necessarily working together. People like me, an academic, the secretary of an NGO. So I have multiple roles within my society and country, and though sometimes conflict. I also have other hats and roles. So things can be very dependent on who you know. And there is this language issue where English and Maltese are both our national languages, but Maltese identifies us, whilst English is really much the language we use for tourism. We get 4 million tourists per year now. Yeah, and obviously Malta is susceptible to a climate crisis that we're going through. It recently went through a heat wave and went up to 43 degrees. The sea saves us a bit, but yeah. So there are some benefits when it comes to SciComm communication. Easier to survey, to get the numbers you need, because it's smaller. You can have one festival like the one I run, Science in the City. That recent surveys showed that 70% of people in Malta know about them. These kind of ridiculous numbers, and 40% or 50% have come to it at least once. So the right investment and policies can change things, and you need to do less than a whole country. In the UK, there are 20, 30 festivals. It's very different. So this was a stakeholder mapping exercise we did. This is one of the things that is helping to overcome the issue of fragmentation. Esplora, the Science Interactive Center of Malta, they're doing some great work. I worked with them on this mapping of steam in Malta, and here, just to show you even on a small island, the complexity there is, and we focused on the flow of knowledge, money, and influence. And you can see it's diverse, it's very net and overlapping. And there are, even on a small island, there can be a lot of different institutions and stakeholders to coordinate. And that's what this STEAM engagement task force that Esplora set up is trying to achieve. I was the co-chair for 6 months, then it was handed over to the Ministry of Education. So me, the Ministry of Education, and Esplora are, so to speak, the three pillars of science communication in Malta. The Ministry of Education do a ton of STEM and STEAM projects. They'll be focused on formal education, whilst I'm more focused on informal, so outside of the classroom. Some interesting stats about Malta. Attitudes towards science is high. There are other I forgot to finish that sentence. There are other surveys that show a bit lower, so it ranges between 70 to 80. this is comparable to other European countries. 45% of respondents reported attending science activities. Mostly they've either come to Science in the City or Explora. Interest is heavily skewed with higher education. So 18 to 24-year-olds were the most who came. So students see it most relevant for them. We've got a lot of people who are beyond the science profession that are coming. We do a street festival, and I think that helps a lot. And the internet, like I think every other or most other part of the world, is the preferred information source. An interesting one at the bottom is that men reported greater confidence in their scientific knowledge. This was based on the research of Dr. Daniel Farrugia. I've put a QR code there if you want to scan it. And she did her PhD with me. She was the first PhD in Malta on SciComm communication. So that was remarkable. And this is also a small island thing, right? So this is talking about going from interest, the difference to power, who selects the issue of justice in science communication as well, who selects things, who frames, who's invited, who can access it. The festival, for example, is done mostly in English. If you come to this free street festival, a lot of people will talk to you in Maltese, but a lot of our marketing is in English. The team behind me, they're responsible for it. A lot of them are come from abroad to help run the festival. We work through a lot of interns, which are international. That means it's very difficult for us to have that Maltese focus. This is from Dr. Farrugia's PhD. She created this model that termed the Maltese public sphere of science, showing or trying to help us overcome this issue of publics and power, which we can talk about more. And spirals here visualize going from one level of engagement on science capital to another. So going from being disengaged to being empowered when it comes to engagement with science and research. So some things we do in Malta. This is our festival. I'm going to talk over it. So we attract about 30,000 people every year. And everything is hands-on. We also do, it's a science and arts festival. This is from Brickfund, Maryland. We have dance, we have puppet theater, games, arts, and so on. So these are things that are very important for us, and showcasing the research that happens in Malta. This is a science theater project. So we identified in our festival that this issue of who comes to the festival, that it's attracting mostly people from a higher socioeconomic background. Responding to that, we worked with local artists. This is Angel Galia. She did some fantastic work through more or less theater, working with Sala San Domingo, which is a religious group that do theater, so the Passion Play. That's their focus. We talked to them. They wanted Wi-Fi. We applied for funding to provide that. It's also our remit as a festival, right, to do that, but we did. And we paired them with the primary school, 100 meters away. And they were trained. There were workshops. The students, primary school students, did research and mapping of their locality. And based on their research, they created this play with their teacher, and you can see some of the performers here. And Angel Galia is the second from the left. The director it was her first time directing, and now she's continued to direct other plays. I think she was a teacher in the school. And yeah, it was a great success for us. This is a more recent project. So that's part of our community engagement, trying to overcome this accessibility issue. And sorry about the sound. This was something we did last year. We did teacher training through the ELSTEAM project. It's an Erasmus Plus project, led by us with Science View, Nucleo, and a number of other organizations. It's a relatively small fund, but we're achieving a big impact by working. We train teachers, and then teachers take the science theatre approach, um, which I think Menelaus Sotiros, one of the pioneers in it in Greece. But there's also a Science About Theatre festival now. Many people around the world are doing it, and it's one of the best conferences I've been to. UC also do a conference. But they created the solar dance off. As you can see, some of the graphics are through AI. Um, and so STEAM education, and we're trying to embed it in these small communities. We also have Cyprus involved, which is another small island state. So this was another project, Project Poseidon, focused on raising awareness about seagrass meadows. And we worked with refugees, migrants, and uh, Maltese locals as well. It was an attempt to trend our second attempt. Our first attempt didn't work. This one did work, where we used beach cleanups really as an excuse to bring different groups of people together. We provided food, provided transport, and Alexia over there, the third person from the right, she was the academic, and she was talking about her research, but we did it in a very informal approach. And with all these other things, and they did a beach cleanup. You can see all the bin bags they collected, and she also then worked with divers to plant Posidonia oceania, so Mediterranean seagrass. It's like a keystone species in the Mediterranean, a very important species. Other species live on. This was a project, Varsities, in a street in Gzira, so it's a highly urban place, and we were trying to bring more greenery and nature-based solutions. We've done surveys. We found that it was wanted by the populace there. And we did these temporary greening installations. So we built, and then we donated them to a school. I'll show you all of those. And we didn't do them just about science. We did music and film. We did films about local communities based on archival footage. We got local artists or artists that live in the locality to come present. We got NGOs to do hands-on activities, which you commonly see at science festivals. Some of our staff did that as well, and yeah, this is another activity we did. Again, highly focused on culture. It was part of Refugee Week. And we did grow your own vegetables workshops. We did yoga sessions. We had local food. This was from an Ethiopian restaurant in Gzira. We had puppet shows. This is Sean Briffa, he's an artist, and Ukrainian refugees also. Doing arts and crafts. We had this art installation that was a form of activism as well, where people were playing this game and planting seeds around this garden. So this was by Laura and Tom, two artists. You can see them sitting down in the shade. We worked with schools in Gzira as well on this project, the varsities and just nature projects, and we use these approaches to get ideas from the children to develop a green area for them. We used soundscape, so they were listening, they were drawing, they were taking photos, and we used that information, gave them to the designer to develop this playground. We gave this to the teachers, they added more input for it, and we changed it again. And working with an artist, we also created this outdoor learning area. So there's a blackboard that can be used for activities and so on. And we launched it with the mayor of Gzira. You can see the olive trees we donated to the school from the pop-up parks. So yeah, then we replicated, this was in the primary school. We then replicated it in the secondary school. And I'll show you a few pictures from that. Again, cube idea. The kids were drawing on it. Not everything was relevant, of course. These were 11-year-olds. We also took it, also this cube, this is a cube we created. So again, with a blackboard, but we added Lego to it for the Science in the City Festival. We used it for public engagement and then took it to the school as well. Now we're reusing it because we found out the primary school used this outdoor learning area. The secondary school, not so much. So after a couple of years, we're now reusing it for an artwork. So yeah, those are some lovely pictures. Now to go back to the start, a bit about the funding part, because also I'm quite dependent on funding. I don't get national funding, significant direct funding from government yet. I hope to soon for the Science in the City Festival. Because that, for example, did not get the EU funding. So right now we're very dependent on local funding to overcome that. And this is the issue with funding developed. So we're good, Malta, we can access part of the EU, so we can access EU funding. We're obviously competing with players from much bigger countries with a lot more resources than us. That is something sometimes the funding still needs to address. Sometimes you overcome that by working with those larger countries, or you try to be innovative in other ways using the small island as an advantage. So the problem with funding is the 3-4 year project life cycles. You have to piece project after project after project to have long-term impact and to retain your capacity. This is a massive issue. So these are a few things I wrote. We need more Maltese language resources for teachers, for families, and so on. Explorers is working on developing that, and the Ministry of Education, but more can be done. Training programs for teachers, researchers, practitioners, journalists. We don't really have science journalists in Malta. That's a lacuna of ours. Larger countries have a regular, well-funded public attitudes, participation in science studies. We don't. We've done that through Dr. Daniel Farrugia. Some things the Explorer has funded as well, but it's something that's needed. So we can track that. And we've been working very hard to try to create some form of public engagement resource center, but till now we haven't arrived there. And a national strategy on science communication, especially as a small island state, and also more in higher education institutions, more diplomas, certificates, and courses in science communication itself. We have STEM engagement masters provided by another institution, but there's still space for a lot more that can be done. So yeah, I mostly want to thank you, and this is my team, and yeah, I don't know, John, if we should move in. Maybe I stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Ed. So yeah, that's perfect. And so honestly, there's so much to unpack. Like I've been writing notes, but first I should probably ask if anyone has got any questions at this point. Obviously, feel free to put any questions or ask at any point of this conversation. Okay, I've got a question from Joe, and please just raise your hand or let me know, and I'll pop you in. But please go ahead, Joe.
Thank you. Wow, I am so inspired. I don't even know how to digest all of what you've just showed us. Thank you so, so much for that. I'm particularly curious about this co-design of the theatre performances. How do you engage children with theatre? Is it a theatre school? How do children opt in to be participants in a theatre space like that?
Okay, so we work normally with schools. They're not specialized theater schools. I have heard of this approach being done in specialized theater and music schools. Usually what that allows is that the quality of the production would be much higher. although the Vucid Beltin one was a good production quality because we have professional artists involved. We normally talk to the school head. You need buy-in from the administration, and then to figure out where within the school life it can fit. So sometimes it can be seen as a school play that they rehearse during the school, but also outside of school hours, which can be problematic. And now we're trying to embed it more, the concept of science theater, within what the school already does. So we're thinking that there is a project-based learning unit now at middle school, so that's around 10, 11 years old, to 12. And that might allow a space, so it's within the curriculum, it's within school hours, and part of the reason for the students and the teachers to, because adding more work on teachers than they're already doing is not an approach, a good approach.
Thank you. Thanks so
Because
much.
you'll get the highly engaged ones, but then you'll miss the.
We have another question as well from Celeste, who asks, outside of the festival, are there other programs that bring science to communities?
Yeah. So we do the Science Theater project and Project Poseidon were outside of, especially Project Poseidon was outside of the festival because Voci Beltino was tied to the festival. So we apply for other funding, a lot of it national, much smaller funding. So Explore also run a STEAM community engagement fund for small projects. And we also tap into Arts Council funding and voluntary sector funding to do additional things. For example, another project which I didn't mention, which I wanted to, was Eco Spectrum, that's being run by Karen Ferrini right now, and they worked with the people who take care of Chadwick Lakes, if I'm not mistaken, Nature Trust. They have one site manager. He has a very big ambition, and we're working with neurodivergent children to they get activities within the Chadwick Lakes area, within nature, hands-on activities, which they love, they adore, because it engages them, it focuses them, it provides multiple stimuli, which is great. And at the same time, those tasks were linked, a few of them, to like removing invasive species, creating compost heaps, and these were compost heaps like 20 meters long. I'd never seen anything like this. And this group of 15 kids and their parents just did it in like half an hour. It was really cool. But the guy Ben really prepared well, and that's why it was a success. So we do. The festival, as I said, attracts people from, it attracts 30,000, but they still tend to be in the majority from a higher socioeconomic background. So in parallel, we do these other projects targeted to specific groups, which we want to enhance accessibility and empower as well. The problem is these small projects, one, they're time bound, and two, it's a small group of people. So you're looking at 10, 20.
So I think that's really interesting in that I think it's just a problem across most of science communication in that you're literally preaching to the choir. And in case that's an idiom that's more known in the UK, it's just saying is you're talking to people who are already converted to your agenda.
Yeah.
And that goes to museums and all of the centers that are set up. People kind of go to them because they're already there. And so I guess I was going to think about communities on a small island. My feeling would be that because it's a smaller island, people are more in touch with everybody. So if one person's gone to the festival, they probably have family members, neighbors, and people that they can spread it to and say, "Oh, I went to this thing." So I
Yeah.
was wondering, what is the reach of, say, your festival and things like that? Does everybody on the island know about it? Because there's and things like Explorer, there's one Explorer, so I'm guessing everyone on the island would say, "Oh, I know Explorer." Whereas in the UK, there's some things that everyone will pretty much know, but they've normally got something in their area. They don't need to know the stuff in other areas. And
Yeah.
so I guess does everyone know everyone and everything in Malta?
Um, it's a bit of yes and no. So the surveys show that like 70% of people or more know about science in the city, and like 45 or 50% they had that they've attended um, at least once. Esplora used to get lower numbers, but now they've overtaken us as science in the city, which for me is great to hear, to be honest. Um, so it's that doesn't mean everyone goes still, and it doesn't mean that, for example, we had the best participation, the most inclusive when we were purely online during COVID in 2020. It's not what we expected. The metric we were using was educational level, but we got the highest amount of people with a lower education coming or listening to the festival, viewing it when we went online. However, when COVID stopped, that went from 20,000 people to 1,000. So it drastically changed. And I guess it was a moment in time which helped us innovate. It helped us to do an online virtual festival. We still do a bit of it, but much more resource efficiently because the numbers have gone down so much when it comes to online viewing of things. People want real world experiences now. That's what I see. So yeah, that we try to overcome the preaching to the choir. There was a comparative study done by me and Eric and Darren Jensen and a couple of more people. If you search for our names, you'll find it online, and they found that I think Malta got like one of the higher levels of inclusivity or highest when compared to other countries. I think the UK and Ireland. But still, the majority are people already interested, and from a higher socioeconomic background. So it's a problem, and the way we try to overcome it is through these targeted projects by going to where the people are, and working with them, their needs, seeing what their needs are, not us coming up with events and offering them to them, but trying to work with those communities so we see what the events they want or they would want to do. So sometimes we have tried to also encourage them to, do you want to organize something, and can we help you do that? Can we be a platform for you to do that? It's a difficult approach. It's a time-consuming approach. You can only do it with small groups of people, but it works. It works really well. Celeste just posted something interesting. The community activity hosted by Nyhurst took the form of a community science week at a secondary school. We had exhibits, hands-on activities, planetarium shows. That's really nice to see. I always encourage have more things like music, theater, art exhibitions combined with science. I really love when there's cultural activities that also have science as part of that culture.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I had two things that sprung to my mind just there. So when you mentioned COVID and the numbers going up for the online events, and you can imagine maybe one aspect could be people are sitting at home, they're just bored, they want something to do, and
Yeah,
now they
exactly.
try anything to kind of alleviate that. Or maybe I was wondering whether it was access, whether they just weren't used to traveling places to go and see stuff. Because I think even going to a science museum or science center, that's cultural.
Yeah,
Going on a holiday, going on trips, that's cultural. Some people do it more than others. Some cultures would
yeah,
know to stay behind. And I wonder to what extent um, the people of Malta were geared up more
Mm,
towards whatever it was about COVID that made them want to
yeah.
attend more. I have no idea.
I think it could have been something like they were hunger to have something to consume, and this was, higher quality products, and local. There won't be any local shows on showing local researchers. It could be people they know or their families, friends, and so on. So I think that really, really helps us, to be honest. Um, However, even though it's a small country, especially initially when we set up the festival, we were noticing, and that's why we did these projects. Um, we noticed that people won't even come from like what we'd refer to as the southern part of Valletta, which is a more socioeconomically deprived area, and they won't walk a kilometer and a half to the festival. We were discovering that people are more likely to come from 5, 7 kilometers away in the northern harbor area, Sliema, Gżira, St. Julian's, that part, than from Valletta itself.
That's it.
So I think the small island state doesn't overcome in its entirety this inclusion, access, power, dynamics issues that people don't feel that something labeled as science in the city um, would be for them. They need something different, a different approach to be for them. And that theater, the Voci Beltin, it's a Maltese title. It happened in a community theater within their community. That worked a lot better. The families, friends, and so on of those children came. We did a few shows. Every time we had 100 people or so come, I think. Um, so that was a success in that regard. But it's not the massive numbers of the festival. Um, that's, I think, the thing we haven't cracked is how to do this on a bigger scale where you're being inclusive, you're being accessible to other communities also.
I'll just need a second to read through all the comments
Yeah.
to gather.
Maybe I can answer Celeste. It's not really a question, but Celeste mentioned that they've been encouraging university colleagues in TT to do formal training in SciComm, but feedback is not so strong. That's something I suffer a lot as well. People actually coming to the science communication training. Usually I get the researchers already interested in science communication. So this is another speaking to the convert. They're the audiences who come, but also the academics and experts and whoever that are normally providing the content in some way, right? Although citizens can also provide content as well. Anyway, the training can be tricky. People do, it needs to be part of their, like, they need to see a link between the training and their work. Like if that training is linked to some certificate, so teachers in Malta do something called COP sessions, uh, very well titled, but those are their training sessions, and they're in their contract. So if you get in on those COP sessions, you go from 10 to 20 teachers coming to your workshops to 80 teachers coming to your workshops. I experienced that this year. I should have experienced it earlier. And I was amazed. I was like, how the hell are there so many teachers here? What's going on? They're wanting to learn about STEAM and AI arts activities that we're doing. And the conversation was super engaged. And same applies to researchers. If it's part of the promotion criteria, if it helps them get that senior lectureship or professorship or whatever, they will do it and they will do it eagerly. So motivate them, figure out a way to motivate them.
Yes, I've just put the map of global science communication courses. I'm not sure how up to date it is, but PCST and GlobalScape put it together a few years ago. But then when I was working on GlobalScape, a huge issue was basically the difference between formal and informal training. And so these are very much formal training courses. You pay money for it, you go into it, you invest a lot of time into it. But most people, that's not where they're at. They don't have the money, or they don't have the support, the resources. And so I realized that there's a lot of informal training that goes on. You won't get a certificate for it, but it's good at updating your knowledge. And for many of the reasons some people have said already. And so I did a micro study just to see how many I could find online. There was many problems with this little micro study, mainly because I was only looking for courses advertised online, because that's the only way I could find them. Plus, I don't speak any other language but English. So I had to find things that were in English and then also translate my search into Japanese and do the search in Japanese, and also find out what the Japanese term for science communication is so I could search for that term. And then I had to do that for each of the countries that I looked at, which was an absolute headache. But I wanted to get a rough idea, because no one actually looks about it or talks about it. It's just, oh, I do training. But when you're someone who really wants to learn about science communication, you're so thirsty for anything. So you even choose the inappropriate training, something that isn't giving you what you actually need. Like if you want an introduction, but you take something that's a bit more complicated or more kind of higher level for people who practice it, or and I think these are the problems. Science communication is growing really fast, and we can't really keep up with its diversity and spread. And it doesn't mean we have to. I think it needs to be diverse. It needs to spread. It needs to really be very versatile, because all of the different localities and the different individuals that it will come up against, it needs variety. Like you said, Ed, it's that you realize you couldn't reach people who it was on their doorstep, but you'd reach people 7 kilometers away, and you needed another way to access them. And I think, like when I produced the workshops, my thing was, if you want to reach a diverse publics, you need to be diverse yourself. So you either need to be diverse in your own practices, or you need diverse people within your teams, because that diversity allows you to cater for the diversity of publics. But the problem is education levels. Who is doing the science communication? Is it the most uneducated people in the country? I doubt it. And so even then, the science communicators are already in a particular position where you can't get into communities, people who are from those communities, because they don't have the particular skill set, you could say, until we broaden what we call science communication to incorporate those skill sets. And I think these are the issues we're getting with participation, where we're saying beyond dialogue, we want to participate and co-create with peoples from different localities. They don't necessarily have the skill sets. And so we need to kind of develop that hand in hand. But there's so many problems. And like I said, I'm just seeing all of them, and I've got a lot to say about lots of it. But I think Ed did send me a breakdown of the things he was talking about, and he said some really good quotes. So I'd like you to say some of those, Ed. It's not about focusing more on the local or the international. It's about working together or developing something with both of them together at the same time. But I'll let you find those quotes and bring them back into the fold, because they were really good. And I went, I'm going to steal that and pretend it was mine. No, I'm joking. No,
no worries.
no,
You can,
really
because
good.
I've forgotten them, and I'm like, what the hell did I say?
Yeah, no, it's in the message. I can get them up later. That's fine.
So something that I wanted to mention was also working with community leaders. So find the community leaders who are receptive to your message. So we worked, for example, with to attract refugee communities. It was Park 15, an NGO here, and it's run by people from the community. So we worked with them. We've worked with other NGOs also. So when it was on the environment, people like Nature Trust or other groups. So that's something that works very well. If you have a specific goal in mind or a specific target group, try and find people from that group that are receptive to your message. For example, with Valletta, there's this great guy, Isaac Telmar. He's the secretary of the Sala San Domingo. He's also an actor, and he works for Heritage Malta, I found out. And because he has that cultural love, he was very happy to work with the Science and Arts Festival and convince the people in his own community that they shouldn't just do the passion play, they should also support a Science and Art Festival with its mission. So yeah, that worked a lot. I've got here a note about Maltese publics show strong interest but participating and influence are unequal. But maybe it's part of the stuff I didn't actually put on my slides. So I was thinking about, and then I thought I had too much content. So I'll look over that if we have time.
So just to point out, we have got to the end of the initial hour. So I always just advertise that there's an hour where we just hear about the specific speaker's experiences, Malta in this case. And then I open up the last half an hour for us just to have a conversation. And so if anyone needs to go, by all means, please do. I don't want to keep you here longer than you have. But if you're interested and you're eager to carry on talking, as I always am, please do hang around for the next 30 minutes. And so I'd just like to say thank you, everyone, for coming to this Global SciComm meetup. It's been awesome having you, and hopefully catch you at the next one in a couple of months.